What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV, aka Darth Apocalypse. All right, so before I get into this video, shout out to the brother Trinard Washington for the donation to the channel via the Cash App. Much respect to him for showing love to the channel. And he wanted me to talk about Jamal Mashburn. He says Jamal Mashburn is not talked about enough. No, he is not. Jamal Mashburn has become one of the forgotten near great players of the 90s and 2000s. This is one of the things I say all the time. I say, look, man, a lot of young people, they don't understand how talented the 90s and 2000s were. Like, there's a lot of players who would drop 40 or 50 on you who are not household names. They don't know about Jamal Mashburn, nor do they know about his one-time teammate, Jimmy Jackson. They'll just look at the scoring average and say, oh, well, he wasn't really much of a guy player because he averaged 13, 14 a game. Not understanding that the talent was so plentiful in the 80s and 90s and 2000s that you often had guys who, if they were on one team, they could do what Trae Young do. They could be the ball dominant scorer and average almost 30 points a game, especially in today's era. But they could have played in that era and averaged 25 points a game on a bad team. But in order to win, they knew they would have to sacrifice. You couldn't just, you can't go out there and just ball dominate when you got other guys on the floor who are capable of scoring and relegating them to lesser roles. That's why a certain guy, instead of having 8, 9 titles, he has 4 and lost 6 times. But hey, what do we know? But Jamal Mashburn, man, he, in many ways, speaking of that guy, Jamal Mashburn was in some ways a precursor of him, but he would be him if he actually listened to his coaches. Because Jamal Mashburn had an expansive offensive repertoire. He was 6'8", 240, which in them days you didn't see in threes. You might have saw that in a 4, but not a 3. He was 6'8", 240, but athletic, especially before all the leg injuries and knee injuries. He was real fluid. He could post you up. He could score on you facing up. Obviously, he had the mid-range. He could shoot from 3, especially as his career progressed. He was I remember him being a good free throw shooter, at least upper 70s, 80%-ish, somewhere in that range. He had the crossover. He had the hesitation, move, down pat. He was a total package, man. And he went to college at Kentucky. He was with the Kentucky Wildcats. And that's when they was putting out a lot of great players at that time, Kentucky. Jamal Mashburn, I believe Paul Pierce played for Kentucky, if I'm not mistaken. Antoine Walker, if I'm not mistaken, played for them. This is when they was putting out a lot of great players at that time. And the only thing about it was he went to a fucked up team. Man. He went to the Dallas Mavericks when they sucked. Like, they were the worst team in the 90s. That's how bad they are. When the Clippers don't even have the distinct honor of being the worst franchise in a decade. No, it wasn't. The Mavericks were horrible. The year before he got there, they won 11 games. And this wasn't a strike-shortened season. They were 11-71. And then I think when he got there, they won like 13 or 14 games. But then they had Jason Kidd, and they were the 3 J's: Jamal, Jimmy, and Jason. I know most people call Jim Jackson. I tend to say Jimmy Jackson. Even when I play him on the game on 2K, I change his name from Jim to Jimmy. But supposedly Jimmy Jackson and Jason Kidd had an issue. Even we heard the beef back then, and we didn't have the internet. Suppose it had something to do with a certain R&B singer that they were fighting over or whatever, right? So what could have been a great tandem or a great not tandem, excuse me, a great trio, it didn't work out. But everywhere else he went, Jamal Mashburn, he went to the playoffs. And he was a tremendous scorer, despite the fact that he consistently had to share the court with other great players, like Alonzo Mourning before the kidney issues, like Tim Hardaway, like Jim Jackson. He also played for the Hornets. So I'm trying to remember who he was playing with at that time. My memory is kind of faded over time as far as who was on those teams. But, let me see something. He was on those teams before let me see. Baron Davis. Yeah, Baron Davis. So, Jamal McGlure was borderline all-star. This is when he was playing on, with other. He was always playing with somebody else that could score, at least one or two other great scorers. So he had to learn how to, he was sharing the rock, man. But as his career progressed, he picked his spots more. He utilized his size more as he slowed down a little bit with the athleticism because of the consistent knee injuries. But he could, like I said, he could score on you in the post. He used his size, back you up, fade away, money, kind of reminiscent of almost like a Jordan fadeaway. Wasn't as artistic, as fluid or as beautiful as pose as Michael, but he had that basic post Michael fadeaway move down. He also picked his spots very well. He was very good at creating space. And people might look at the field goal percentage and say, well, man, he only shot 41. Gotta understand something. This is the dead ball era for the most part. He played from like 93 to 2006 or something like that, right? 2005. Let me see. Yeah, he played from 93 to 2005. So essentially most of his career was a dead ball era, which I consider basically 96 to 2005, 2006. So he played the majority of his career in the dead ball era. That was more of a half-court, defensive, grind out. If you look at a lot of those games, especially in the Eastern Conference, when you look at the paint, if you're a young kid, you look at a lot of the footage, what do you see? The paint's clogged like a motherfucker. So you're not going to get all these easy, plus the game was slowed down. So all those easier transition buckets you get going up and down the court, or the way the centers are now stretched on the perimeter. So the lane is, the paint is pretty much open now. You didn't have that back then. So you generally, if you're a scorer, unless you could get in the post and score, which you could at that time, but generally speaking, even a guy like Jamal Mashburn, he wasn't a center. He still had a lot of shot blocking centers, and you paid a price too if you drove to the rack, which is why a lot of guys who were slashers, you heard LeBron talk about this. You heard LeBron say in a recent interview with Tyrese Halliburton, man, when I first came to the league, us high flyers, we were kind of afraid to go to the paint because we were afraid of not just the physicality of it, but you're afraid of getting tripped up, or you're afraid of twisting your ankle or stepping on somebody's shoes. That happened a lot. Because why? Because there was a lot of traffic down low. Now you don't have to worry about that quite as much. Now the new injury is, trying to play defense without using your feet, having to move laterally and all that shit. That's what's that's busting people's ankles down. So that's why you don't see as many people driving. That's why you saw a lot more people obviously shooting more mid-range. As a consequence, and also guys can be more physical with you as far as not letting you get to your spots like they allowed Draymond Green to do. So people's field goal percentage is going to be lower. But trust me, if Jamal Mashburn is playing today without the presence of a center, as big as he was, with the skill set he has, oh, trust me, he's shooting close to 50% from the field today, just because of the nature of the game. He especially would be a beast. Jamal Mashburn learned the game of basketball playing at Rucker Park. As I said, he went to play college at the University of Kentucky. When you look at his resume, he was the NBA All-Star in 2003, All-NBA third team 2003, NBA All-Rookie first team 1994, consensus first team All-American 93, SEC Player of the Year 1993, SEC Athlete of the Year 1993, two-time first team All-SEC 1992 and 93, second team Parade All-American 1990, Mr. New York Basketball 1990. He averaged 19.1 points per game in his NBA career. His last season in the NBA, although he only played, I think, 19 or 20 games, he did average over 20 points per game, which makes him, I think, one of only 8 players to average 20 points a game their final season in the league. It's yet to be determined what LeBron's going to do, but, he uses that super soldier serum, so I don't include him in these types of shits. But I'm trying to say, I think he's one of 8. The other ones are Alex Groza, who had to leave the NBA because of the point shaving scandal. He was banned from playing professional basketball, for the rest of his life. So you have Alex Groza, Bob Pettit, who averaged, I forgot exactly how much he averaged, but it was more than 20. His last year, 64, 65. Larry Bird averaged more than 20 his last year. Michael Jordan did. Averaged 20 on the dot. Says 4. Drazen Petrovic averaged more than 20, but he was, killed in an accident. Reggie Lewis averaged more than 20, but he died of a heart attack. Said 6. Who am I forgetting? I think I'm forgetting somebody. Jerry West. Jerry West averaged more than 20 his last season. That's 7. That might be it. So, this guy could really, truly score, man. And he had a lot of invasive knee surgeries. A lot of them, man. But this guy, even though, even though he had a lot of injuries, he could light up great individual players. I remember when he dropped 50 on Scottie Pippen. And this is when Mike was retired, if I'm not mistaken. So I think it was like the 94-95 season, which in some ways, oddly, is like his peak. He dropped 40 on the Shaq and Penny Orlando Magic the same year, if I'm not mistaken, they went to the finals. So this guy, he won't just one of these guys that would go out there and stat pad, against bad teams. He could drop. I mean, he could make great defenders look terrible. Hell, I remember when he was with Miami. When this is when he was starting to break down physically. When he was with Miami, and he's one of the reasons why those Miami Heat teams were really good in the late 90s, because they were loaded. Because sometimes I'd be forgetting who was on that team. You had Alonzo Mourning, Tim Hardaway, Dan Marley. You had in 95-96, they had Rex Chapman, but I think he left after that year to go to Phoenix. But they also had Jamal Mashburn. They had Rashawn Leonard, who was a great 3-and-D guy. They and they had some other guys I just can't think off the top of my head right now. But they had a lot of great players on those teams, man. The Bulls went through some serious competition. Oh, but anyway, Jamal Mashburn ended up becoming a tremendous businessman. He owns over 90 businesses, including 38 Outback Steakhouse locations, 40 Papa John's locations, 3 Dunkin' Donuts locations, and a number of car dealerships across the state of Kentucky. He just got into a business deal with some basketball league, if I'm not mistaken, or trying to create a basketball league, and his net worth is over $100 million. Now, mind you, this is not a guy that was getting $20, $30 million a year. He was making a lot of money, but he was making like $5, $10 million, $9 million a year, which is great money. But compared to these guys today, that's not that great. So you got to do like, Rich Paul complained about, oh man, these guys, make $100 million, $20 million, but it's so hard to stay afloat financially. Jamal Mashburn shows you what common sense and hard work does, man. But anyway, salute to him. Tell me what you guys think.